You know, I've been in bad situations before, but never anything like this. Here's some brief context. About 2 weeks ago, I was running dangerously low on funds. I guess the demand for shady hitman wasn't exactly at an all-time high. At that point, I was willing to take any job that was less difficult than assassinating the president. I got exactly what I wanted about a week after the eviction notice came in. $20,000 for one guy, as far as I could tell. No baggage attached. It was just some random guy, or at least that's how they presented to me. Now, the person or people who had sent me this offer seemed a bit more secretive than the usual customer. I mean, I usually expected a fake name at the very least, but these guys didn't even offer an alias. Whatever, I thought. It is what it is, right? They didn't seem to have a name for the target either, simply referring to him as the freak. It was weird to say the least, but beggars can be choosers. They wired me $10,000 up front. The rest would come after I finished the job. Those were their conditions. Anyway, I started driving out to the address they'd given me where the target was supposed to be. They told me I should get there by midnight, so I arrived around 10 p.m. in order to set up. My loadout was a bit heavier than usual. I was thinking that this guy had to be armed and trained or something since they were willing to pay me a shitload. I was packing a silenced Beretta, a 40 automatic CZ75, and a Remington 870, a scoped M14, a butterfly knife, and some brass knuckles if it had to come to close quarters. Well, that wasn't it. There was one last thing I brought with me. It was a grenade. Now, I didn't think I'd actually need it, and I didn't really want to use it. It was just there in case shit went beyond south. I hid myself as best as I could in the darkness of the dingy factory and waited until midnight. At about 12:11, the rusty door flung open. I watched through my scope as an abnormally tall figure wearing a windbreaker and slacks burst in. From the description they gave me, this was definitely the guy. I mean, how many people are 6'10"? The thing is, he was moving way too fast for me to get a clean shot, and I didn't want to risk blowing my position. In fact, he was sprinting for whatever reason. However, he did appear to be unarmed, so I let myself relax a bit. I lost him when he ran into a door on my left. Moving quickly, I pulled out the Beretta, stuck the CC-75 into the holster, and followed him. Now, the place that he entered was pitch black, but I planned for that. I put on a pair of night vision goggles and started traversing around the area. It appeared that he led me into a hallway. However, I couldn't find the guy. This was when the first peculiar thought struck me. How the hell was he seeing anything in here? My musing was cut short when I heard a shrill scream come from somewhere at the end of the hall. Carefully, I maneuvered my way down there and peeked down both the left and right branch corridors. The screaming was definitely coming from the room to the left. As I got about halfway there, it just stopped suddenly. I froze in my steps. What the hell? It was at that moment when a body came flying out of the room. I nearly shouted it out of shock, but managed to control myself. I watched as what appeared to be a 20-something male hit the wall just in front of me and bounced off, face planting hard into the concrete. It made me sick, squishing noises as it did. I noticed that one of the legs seemed to be crumpled, like if the Terminator himself had grabbed onto it and squeezed hard. I could hear whatever had done this starting to come back out into the hallway. Feeling extremely disturbed and somewhat unprepared, I silently backed out into the main entrance hall from there. I trained the gun directly onto the intersecting corridors and waited. I mean, there was no way he could see me, right? My heart skipped a beat with nearly every step that guy took. He was getting closer, closer. 3 more steps. 2. As soon as he came into my view, I emptied an entire magazine. My accuracy has always been pretty decent, so I say most of them hit. However, he was still standing. And not just that, he barely even flinched. That's when I got a closer look at his face. All I can say is nobody looks like that. In fact, nothing should look like that. What I was staring down in that dark hallway, his face was incomprehensible. Not like conventional demon or mutant that you see in the movies. It was something that the human brain wasn't meant to come face to face with. It didn't belong in our plane of existence. The eyes were constantly changing, morphing if you will. It was as if two irises both shared one large empty pupil. The mouth, if you could call it that, was twisted into a grin that seemed to wrap around its entire head. Not just year to year, those were the only distinguishable features. The rest of the skin on his face seemed to be constantly shifting. Sometimes it would be smooth and sometimes it would look as if 100 of tiny worms were crawling under it. That thing looked directly at me and let out this deep, throaty laugh that seemed to reverberate through the entire hall. I even had to quickly glance behind me because it sounded like it was coming from everywhere. I could barely think. I dropped the CZ and pulled out the Beretta. I emptied 3 shots right into the head, but the monstrosity barely reacted. It just started laughing louder. Obviously, this creature wasn't going to go down anytime soon. I bolted out of the hallway and back into the main factory floor. My thoughts were a mess, but I managed to recall where I left the shotgun. I hastily made my way over there and picked it up. I nearly had a heart attack when I turned around and saw the thing staring right at me. It was still laughing, in addition to now drooling this black, thick-looking liquid. Some of it got into my hand and instantly ate through my skin. I winced in agony before firing a shot right into its face. This time, it actually seemed to react. I noticed that the bullets had managed to pierce its skin, but only slightly. It stopped laughing, instead now letting out a shrill, deafening shriek that nearly burst my eardrums. It grabbed my arm and tossed me some meters away, and I landed hard on my shoulder. I think I nearly broke it. I didn't have the luxury of letting it rest. I pumped the shotgun back and fired another shell directly into the creature's chest as it charged at me. However, I couldn't move out of the way quick enough. The impact from the hit sent me flying about 10 feet back in the air. I landed awkwardly, feeling my ankle dislocated as I did. However, I was also fairly close to the bag where I was keeping a grenade. There was really only one option left. I scrambled over to it and feverishly grabbed the explosive. As soon as I got my hands on it, I pulled a pin. I could already hear the creature coming back towards me. I turned around and rode it toward the thing. I barely got behind the pillar in time for the explosion. I don't think the sound that it let out will ever leave my mind. It wasn't just a shriek, not a roar. It was as if all the air around me was being sucked into that thing's giant mouth and being distorted into some kind of otherworldly bellow. I crawled out from behind the pillar to see the thing stumbling around. It was missing a leg now, but instead of bones sticking out, there was some kind of dark, shiny appendage squirming out of its severed limb. Taking no chances, I emptied the rest of the shotgun rounds into the creature's head. However, it still wouldn't fucking die. Tired as hell and in pain, I stumbled over and watched the freakish entity climb up the wall and out an open window. That was the last I saw of it. Immediately after I packed up my things and got into my car and floored it home. It's been hours since. I'm sitting here now, still in absolute disbelief at the events that just transpired. I don't even want to begin to think about what the hell that thing was. I tried contacting the people who had sent me after it in the first place, but they were giving me the silent treatment, of course. But there was something rather interesting that I saw in the news. In a report about a murder that took place in an abandoned factory. The same one I was just in. Here's the kicker though. The person that I saw get splattered against the wall was actually a wanted enforcer for a local criminal gang. In fact, only a few days ago, another person had been murdered in a neighboring town. They searched his place and found staggering evidence that he was a contract killer just like me. But this wasn't even the end of it. 5 hitmen and criminal enforcers have been murdered this month, alone all in the same state where I was. The authorities were suspecting that these had to be linked. I do recall hearing about them in some dark web circles a few weeks ago, but I didn't think any of it. I just thought that they must have been incompetent. I also watched a police press conference where some journalist asked if this might be some rogue vigilante on the loose. No, the officer responded. The manner in which these men are getting killed indicates that we got something else on our hands. It's too brutal, like the work of an absolute unhinged psychopath. That thing is still alive, and if it comes after me again, I don't think I'm going to get so lucky. Maybe I'll just hire somebody else to try and kill it.